Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in a Castle, and how Dungeons and Dragons is continuing to just break unbelievable new ground for tabletop role-playing games overall, and do things that its OSR and its indie competitors, as a combined force, cannot reproduce, and are not. And one of the things I think is really interesting about Dungeons and Dragons is Dungeons and Dragons does things multiple times before any of its competitors. Dungeons and Dragons is iterating 3-4 times before any of its competitors do anything. Right? Like it's incredible. Like for instance, the 2000s Dungeons and Dragons movie, which is often castigated. Um, you know, no, there were no other tabletop role playing game movies that were blockbustered and that were reviewed widely and that had American wide releases before Dungeons and Dragons did it again 23 years later, right? Like, so basically, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves was like the second American blockbuster Dungeons and Dragons film, and there had been zero blockbusters from anyone in the OSR or the indie space. It's truly incredible. And the reason why I take the time, and today what I want to talk about is Dungeons and Dragons in a Castle. So that's been going on for a few years now, right? Like 2 or 3 years at least, where people are going to Lumley Castle in northern England, right? And so you would get on a plane and you would go play Dungeons and Dragons. And I know someone who actually I know someone directly who who I've spoken to many times, who actually played Dungeons and Dragons in a Castle, and I also had an extended conversation with Ginny D, who also played Dungeons and Dragons in a Castle. So I have access. So I've I have communication with people who have done this, right? But one of the things, so it was incredible that Dungeons and Dragons did this, and they were able to do this many, many times. There's been dozens of these events, right? And the reason why is Dungeons and Dragons has such a powerful draw, right? Whereas if you said Shadowrun in a castle, you would be very hard pressed to do that even once, let alone do that on a rhythm, like 12 times a year, right? This is a major event that's been going on for a while. But the thing is, it hasn't been possible to do it in America, right? For several reasons. The first reason is um, there aren't that many castles in America, right? There's maybe a half a dozen. There's one close to me in New York, but right now there will be Dungeons and Dragons in Ravenswood Castle, which is in Hocking Hills, Ohio, right? Now there are multiple castles in America, and I believe that we are building out castles in America specifically because of the influence of Dungeons and Dragons, which has spread massively, right? Started in 1974, attracted many people, but today Dungeons and Dragons, attraction flows not just through the Dungeons and Dragons brand. It flows through Layeron's video game. It flows through Stranger Things. It flows through Legos. It flows through Funko Pop. It flows through Yahtzee. It flows through even defunct brands like Creo, right? It flows through. It is like a tree that is growing new roots all the time, right? And that and Dungeons and Dragons supports a medieval view of the world, right? And so these medieval castles, we've built them in America specifically because of America's love for Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion, right? So, Tabletop News did a great story on this and explained that Dungeons and Dragons in a Castle is coming to America. And what I think is really fascinating is just how powerful, like how unstoppable Dungeons and Dragons is. And the reason why I take the time to say it here is go right, go left, man. You will find entire channels. Game Masters, he has a YouTube channel right here. He's been doing a lot of great coverage lately on just saying, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in denigrating Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of it's just clickbait, and it's rage coverage for to brew up hatred toward Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I really want to tell you guys, right? It's bitterness, it's jealousy, right? And the reason why is Dungeons and Dragons is not the number one tabletop role playing game in the world because they got lucky. It's not the number one tabletop role playing game in the world because of their name, right? It is hard work. It is a legacy of delivering quality, right? And the reality is, while you will find, like if you just click one click away, you will find channels that do nothing but denigrate Dungeons and Dragons, but they're doing it ignoring very hard, very real facts, which is that it's very, like, it's real. It is very, it is a real thing that Dungeons and Dragons literally just blaze. It is the trailblazer. It is cutting down the bushes, and then the OSR and the indies are simply coming and following them, right? How long will it be before you see Shadow Dark in a castle? Who knows? And if they do it as a one-off event, the OSR will celebrate, while Dungeons and Dragons, they won't even finish clapping before D&D books their next event, right? And that event will be on 2 continents, right? And so this is my point: is the haters are going to hate, but the reality is there is a drumbeat of undeniable accomplishment behind Dungeons and Dragons. And I truly believe it is an absolutely massive engine of profit. It is a massive engine of cultural impact, and it is a massive engine of identity exploration that is unparalleled in any brand in the world. Dungeons and Dragons has accomplished things that are impressive, far beyond its TTRPG industry, right? And I truly believe it is not even remotely understood at this point, just how deep this is going to go and how extensive. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.